With Blake and Yang sharing their first kiss and finally confessing their love to one another in the most recent episode of Volume 9, I think now is the perfect time to take a look back on the romance that these two shared and how their dynamic has changed throughout the RWBY series. Upon their first introduction, Blake Belladonna and Yang Xiaolong seemed like they couldn't be further apart. Yang, the outgoing adrenaline seeker, and Blake, the reserved lover of books and quiet. Their first interaction speaks volumes about how they saw each other in the beginning. Lost cause, I believe, was the first term that Yang used to describe Blake, but whether due to a stroke of chance or by fate, they were partnered together as members of Team RWBY. In the beginning, Blake held close to her secrets, not allowing herself to get close to anyone out of fear they would reject her for being a faunus and a former member of the White Fang. Through the intervention of a troublesome monkey and the words of a snarky heiress, her secrets were forced out into the open, causing Blake to flee. But her team showed that they were there for her, and proved that there were some people that Blake could trust. Although they still didn't know much about one another, this set the stage for Blake and Yang's friendship that would eventually blossom into romance as they shared experiences and hardships fighting alongside one another. The beginnings of their love was actually hinted at very soon after this, early in Volume 2. After Blake learned of the White Fang's involvement with Roman Torchwick, she became obsessed with learning more and trying to stop them, and this prompted Yang to intervene. That scene showing Blake and Yang opening up to each other was the first major hint that there was something more between them, something special. At this point, they likely still thought of each other as friends rather than potential love interests, but they were allowing themselves to be more vulnerable to one another more than to anyone else. To comfort Blake, Yang talked about painful memories of her past and the search for her mother, something that she's never even talked about with RWBY before. And Blake then opened up to Yang about her past experiences with Adam. These two had a bond that was different from the friendships they had with their other teammates. The time they spent at Beacon, whether they realized it or not, was the beginning of their romance, which they came to learn once the two of them were forced apart after the events of Volume 3. The peace that they had experienced at Beacon Academy was shattered, and Blake's past came back to not only haunt her, but to hurt those she held close. Yang lost her arm, and Blake felt responsible, not only due to her connection to the one who took it, Adam Tauros, but because Yang had only come in contact with him in order to save her. You can see how strongly Blake felt, and how much she blamed herself at the end of Volume 3. As a result, she ran, thinking that her friends would be better off without her. And it is actually this time apart that, in my opinion, is the most crucial to Blake and Yang's relationship. It truly solidified in each of their minds how strongly they felt about the other. Yang was left alone, feeling abandoned, and the absence that Blake left in her life made her realize how much Yang needed her, something that is made very apparent when Yang reunites with RWBY and Weiss in Volume 5. That heart-to-heart that she had with Weiss really showed that no matter how much Yang tried to act like she didn't care if Blake came back, she missed her and truly wanted her to return. That right there is love. And I think Yang knew it too because of how much she was hurting from Blake not being there. Blake, on the other hand, I think had already realized that she loved Yang by the end of Volume 3, and that's what spurred her even more into running, to try and spare the person she loved from any more pain. But, in fact, it was the time apart from Yang that only served to strengthen Blake's feelings for her. She tried to put her time at Beacon behind her, but something, or rather, someone, decided to follow. One Sun Wukong, much like Yang in the early volumes of RWBY, was an act first, think later type of person, so when he saw Blake leave, he knew something was wrong, and followed her without a second thought, in order to do what he could to help her. And help her he did. Blake and Sun spent a lot of time together in Menagerie, and their feelings for each other grew as well. It is an undeniable fact that Sun and Blake had feelings for each other. Blake was close to, and had feelings for, two different people at the same time. That is a very real situation that can occur, but often a choice has to be made. And in this case, it was Sun who made it. He knew that Blake's mindset of running from her friends wasn't healthy. He knew that she needed to be with her team. And so he helped her as best as he could, fending off the White Fang and helping to lead the charge on Haven Academy. Then, when the time came, he let Blake go to where she was needed and where she needed to be. For as much as a goofball as Sun is, he really is a kind and honest individual, looking out for others over himself. Ultimately, even if it took a while for Blake to realize it, by the time her and Yang reunited in Volume 6, Blake knew that she wanted to be at Yang's side. But now, it was Yang that wasn't so sure. The pain of Blake's absence still fresh in her heart, it took time for them to reach an understanding. Blake wanted to help Yang however she could, and offered to protect her. But that wasn't what Yang wanted. She didn't need protecting. She just wanted Blake to be there for her. And after their confrontation with Adam, both of them stood at each other's side, much more confident than before, resolved in the fact that they would continue on together, protecting each other. By this point, the writing was on the wall, and their feelings were apparent to everyone around them, except maybe RWBY. Throughout Volume 7, they continued to re-establish the relationship that they had at Beacon, building upon it and allowing their feelings for each other to flourish and grow. When Salem arrived and the events of Volume 8 began, Blake and Yang were once again parted, each with different ideas of what was most important given the situation around them. Even though they disagreed, they still understood the other's perspective, and didn't think lesser of each other for it, their embrace upon reuniting saying it all. But then came the crossroads. Yang fell in front of Blake's eyes, and I can only imagine the thoughts and emotions that she must have had in that moment. Blake thought she had lost Yang for good, and so when they reunited in the Ever After, Blake was not going to let her chance slip away again. Yang, upon waking up in this other world, on the other hand, didn't quite have the same feeling of desperation as Blake did, since she likely believed that Blake was okay in the crossroads and that she'd find her way out to see her again. Though that thought was probably short-lived, being knocked out of Yang's head after being tackle-hugged by Blake, and from here, the hints were everywhere throughout Volume 9. Between their obvious flirting and Weiss's comments, to Jinxie's asking price of knowing what it is to feel loved, Bumblebee was happening this volume. Thus, we get to the ponderstorm that put Blake and Yang in a situation where there was only one way forward: to embrace their feelings for one another. A wonderfully animated scene that is a truly rewarding culmination of Blake and Yang's romance, and the beginning of their official relationship. Even during their confession, we can see how their dynamic has shifted from how it began, due to the experiences that each of them have had. Blake was eager to admit her feelings, practically cutting Yang off during their confession of love. After their time apart, she was sure who she wanted to be with, in contrast to how she was when her and Yang first met, where she was much more reserved, trying not to get close to anyone. Yang, on the other hand, was much more willing to open up at the start of the series. But after her experience at the fall of Beacon, and most importantly, how she felt after Blake left, she was hesitant to admit how she felt now, needing some prodding from Blake to say the words out loud. This likely out of fear of being left behind again. An issue that will possibly resurface at some point in the series, where Blake will have to once again reassure Yang that she's not going anywhere, just like she did in Volume 6. I think there will be a few moments like that for each of them throughout their relationship, and they will continue to grow together. I have high hopes for them staying together past the finale of the series, assuming both of them survive, fingers crossed, but I don't think it will be smooth sailing the entire way. Of course, the conflicts with Salem will continue, but they will still have some growing pains as they learn to be a couple and open up more to one another. Mistakes will be made, as they occur in every relationship, but I think the bond that has been forged between Blake and Yang will prevail, and I look forward to seeing that reality take form. Overall, the slow burn of Bumblebee was well worth the long wait. The hints and development in their relationship present all along throughout their journey together. And their journey isn't over yet. In fact, in many ways, it's only just beginning. Since the episode aired, there was also an episode of the Always Open podcast that released where Aaron Zek and Barbara Dunkelman, the voices of Blake and Yang respectively, talk about Bumblebee and even answer some fan questions. They even go so far as to talk a bit about some behind-the-scenes info. And it turns out they've been waiting longer for the Bumblebee reveal than any of us have. They'd known about Blake and Yang ending up together for over 10 years now and had to keep silent about it, since before Volume 1 even aired. I'll link to the podcast and the All Good No Worries YouTube channel down in the description below, where you can find more episodes of the Always Open podcast. So, if you're interested in more Bumblebee, or just an excellent podcast in general, I highly encourage you all to check it out. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Whether you're a fan of Bumblebee or not, I hope one thing we can all agree on is to please be respectful of one another. Was there anything I missed while covering Blake and Yang's story together? What are your favorite Bumblebee moments from the show? And how do you think their relationship will progress moving forward? I look forward to seeing what you guys think. If you guys enjoyed this video, want to see more like it, I hope to do many more analyses into the RWBY series, especially after the events of Volume 9 concludes. And really, there's a lot more Volume 9 videos to come, as there's still 4 more episodes of the volume left to go. Make sure to subscribe and join the Guild of the Eternal Flame. If you guys like the series No Game, No Life, make sure to check out my second channel as well, The Daily Flugel. And if you want to see some games played live, chat RWBY or Bumblebee or what have you, make sure to check out my Twitch channel, also linked in the description below. I stream every Tuesday and Saturday. And I will see you guys in the next video.